What is up once again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another installment of ASB Sports Box Weekly. It is our first show in the month of June, and we are so excited to be back. We did take a hiatus last week out of respect for recent events, but we have so much to talk about this week. We have a special guest join us. He's an ASU Cronkite alum and former anchor for House of Sparky and a former in-game host, Troy Lynch. We're going to be playing that interview that we did a little while back. So we're excited to have him on. Franklin Miller is going to be joining us later in the show, but we have Wills Rice here going to be joining in on the conversation from his apartment in Tempe. Glad to have you here, Wills. But let's get into some news. We'll talk about the Last Dance later since we didn't get a chance to on this show since it's been a while. But let's talk about some recent news. The NHL officially made an announcement that they're going to abandon the regular season and favor a 24-team playoff. Now, this does mean the Arizona Coyotes will officially get a playoff berth. They weren't mathematically out, but, I mean, there was a really good chance that they were going to barely miss the playoffs nearing the end of the regular season. So, thanks to the pandemic, they are going to have a chance to compete for the Stanley Cup. It's not going to be easy, but, I mean, no one could disagree. This is obviously a good situation for the Coyotes to take advantage of. So, they're going to be taking on the Nashville Predators in the best-of-5 qualifying round. The game is going to be played in one of two hub cities that the NHL proposed. There is no details yet on when it's going to be played or where it's going to be played. We do know that, unfortunately, the state of Arizona is not going to be considered. After all, since Major League Baseball is going to be more of a hub here. So understandable why they don't want any kind of conflict or any overflow situation going on here. With Wills, I mean, I think this is an exciting time for sports fans, although there's not going to be any spectators. I mean, it's better than not having any sports at all. And the NHL is going to be the first out of the big four sports leagues to officially resume play. And not only that, even double good news for Arizona sports fans, the Coyotes are playoff bound, and they originally weren't going to be playoff bound. So this is exciting news.
Yeah, so they earlier in the season they were in first in their division, flying high. They made the Taylor Hall trade. Everything's looking good. Potential Stanley Cup playoff hopes, finals, maybe contenders, and then they hit that spike in the season where everything went downhill, and it was like, oh crap, they're probably not going to make the playoffs. It's really exciting for Arizona sports fans to now have two teams in the playoffs. But for NHL, it's just. We saw Adam Silver say, the NBA wants to be one of the leaders to help build back the American economy. But look, it's not the NBA, it's not the MLB, it's the NHL. They're the ones, that are getting the fans. They're not getting fans, but they're the ones that are starting their season because they had the plans for the teams and for their player safety before anyone else. And, I think the fans are going to be really excited. The only question and concern is, we've talked about this on other podcasts, on other episodes. If someone gets the virus, like if let's say Alex Ovechkin gets the virus, one of the best players in the NHL, like what do you do? He's one of the best players in the NHL, one of the best players ever. It's like, so it's just a big question. You never know. What if LeBron James gets it? It's just that's the quarantine playoffs. You just have to worry about, are they going to stop the league? Are they going to postpone it again, or are they going to cancel the season? It's really tough to tell. So I'm excited, though. It really is exciting because it's the first major sports, like you said, that are going to be back.
Just muted myself there. But so looking at the playoff seeds, the Coyotes are going to be playing the Nashville Predators. The Yotes are going to be inserted as the 11th seed, and the Nashville Predators are going to be the 6th seed. So the Coyotes, obviously the unfavored going into the matchup. It's going to be a best-of-5 qualifying round. And, of course, we didn't mention this earlier, but just to clarify, the NHL is abandoning their regular season. They're going straight to the playoffs. I think it was obviously a good idea to have a bigger playoff tournament, especially for the teams that weren't mathematically out and still had some of a chance. I didn't think the Yotes could, but they weren't out of it mathematically. So I think it was a fair choice to make by the NHL. And so yeah, it's being called the qualifying round, but it looks like it just seems like a bonus one-time only round. So best of 3. And looking at the other matchups, Edmonton's going to be playing Chicago, Vancouver versus Minnesota, Calgary and Winnipeg. And this is just a few of the Western Conference games. But this is going to look interesting. I mean, we'll talk about the Suns a little bit later, but I think if anyone has a good shot at winning a championship this year, it looks like the Coyotes right now because they don't have the hardest opponents, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, hey, if there's a possibility, they have the best chances, but their chances are probably still about like 2%.
Well, it's better than
Better than zero.
Zero. And yeah, that moves on to our next topic. NBA ended up, by the time you're seeing this, we'll obviously know more details on this, but since the NBA owners, which if we're uploading this at the right time, we're taping this the night before the owners vote on them officially greenlight plans to resume the season in Orlando. I'm shocked that they're not considering playing at the Amway Center because it's a really nice facility. But it looks like they're going to be playing the ESPN Wide World of Sports Complex, the HP Fieldhouse Arena, which they've hosted a lot of neutral site events. I think they've hosted the Junior NBA Championships, but now it's going to be the official central hub for NBA basketball, especially I think the NBA area has a few theme park attractions there already, so they'll fit just right in. But I mean, what do you think of this? Is Orlando a pretty good choice for the NBA to call home?
I mean, yeah, we've talked about Phoenix potentially being a place, but realistically, if you want to have a season, I really like what they're doing there. There's a ton of space and availability for everything to be played. And hey, as a Suns fan, we haven't made the playoffs since 2009, 2010 season, I believe. So, hey, I count this as a playoff appearance, baby. I mean, anything to get my team further on, I think it counts. So, it's really exciting. Like we mentioned, the NHL, it's just sports coming back. Just the idea of them coming back just builds up that excitement. On the inside, everyone has that team that they root for, whether they admit it or not. Everyone has that fire that that urge to watch the game. There's a reason you buy that jersey and put it on. It's because you have the love for the sport, and it was taken away from every American just at the snap of their fingers, and it's something we've never seen before in our lifetime, and hopefully something we never have to see again. But the fact that these leagues are willing to work, trying to work it out and everything like that, it's really promising and exciting to be a fan.
And you're absolutely right. I think the Coyotes ended up issuing a really awesome statement of this. It sucks that there's not going to be any spectators, even though some Coyotes fans or Suns fans might be willing to travel to that neutral site spot. They're most likely not going to allow any fans in, which is probably why they don't care what the size of the arena is, because as long as it can fit a basketball court and enough seats for the media, it's good enough. But not only that, Disney World has like how many hotels to house players? I think they'll be fine. But I think it's going to be offered as the perfect distraction from what's going on with this pandemic. It's better than nothing. So, and I think that's what it's all about for all four of these sports leagues, whether they're playing neutral site or with spectators or not. They just want to do what they do best and just play on. So I think it's a good decision by the NBA and NHL to really just try to get this moving forward before the whole sports calendar thing messes up. But I mean, are you going to miss spectators going to be in the crowd, especially since Fox Sports is considering doing virtual crowds and playing something from an MP3 player?
I don't care if there's 1 or 10 million fans there. I'm just excited to see the game. I go to games for part of the atmosphere and stuff, but I don't watch the game on TV to enjoy the atmosphere. It's like I watch the game on TV to watch the game. So I'm just excited the sports themselves are coming back. People have that outlet to kind of distract themselves from everything that's going on in the world right now.
One thing I'd really want to see if there's going to be like a crowd noise rule, if they're going to bring that back. That classic college football rule. I wonder if there's going to be at least some sort of fans, like at least families or something like that there to watch their.
I doubt it. It's too much risk.
Hey, you never know. If they're all socially distanced, like spread out, it's possible. It's possible. So. All right, we're going to move on. We do have a special guest once again this week, and we're really excited to have him. We interviewed him a while back because originally we didn't think our schedule was going to get a little derailed with political events going on. But he is a ASU Cronkite alum, former anchor at House of Sparky, and a former in-game host for Sun Devil men's basketball, and that is Troy Lynch. He's also currently, right now, what he's doing is he is an anchor, sports anchor for the Fox station in Arkansas. So I'm going to make that transition. Franklin Miller is going to be on there, so let's make the quick transition to the interview. Insert special effect. But now we have an ASU Cronkite alumni, Troy Lynch, joining us from Arkansas in his quarantine apartment. Troy, it's so good to have you on. Thanks so much for coming on, and especially in this kind of pandemic sort of time.
Yeah, it's weird. Thanks for having me. I'm used to asking the questions, so it's always interesting being asked questions. So the last time this happened, I was going viral on the internet.
And I want to get to that moment later on with you and the kids.
Okay.
That video that went everywhere. But kind of getting into your story, how you got into broadcasting. Did it start through high school? Like, where did it all start for you?
Yeah, it started really late high school. I was in a high school broadcasting class my senior year that, honestly, I'm not going to lie. I took it because it was an easy A, and I wanted to be a goofball on TV. So, and so it's funny, and I never thought I would ever be doing this in my lifetime because when I was in high school, I had very different aspirations. I was a volleyball player. I wanted to go D1, and then God had other plans for me. So, but then there was like a moment when I was in high school in my broadcasting class, I made a joke on our student television show that my teacher did not think was funny. So he yelled at me pretty hardcore. And after that, I kind of started taking it more serious. And I was like, wow, this is actually pretty rewarding and actually pretty fun. So ever since then, I was like, a career in this would be pretty cool. And then somebody told me about Arizona State and the broadcast journalism program that they had there. And I'm like, well, talking about sports on TV sounds like the best option for me because I wasn't good at math or science. So I was like, let's pursue this and see what happens. And so one thing led to another, and now I'm here.
And you were considering Arizona State. Was there any other schools that you were considering pursuing a journalism degree at?
No, it was, honestly, my options were pretty slim. My dad didn't want me to go anywhere out of state because that was going to be a little out of the price range. But once we toured Arizona State and saw the Cronkite facilities, it was kind of a no-brainer. And luckily, I got an academic scholarship, so it wasn't as expensive as we thought. The only other colleges that I was looking at were other schools that I was pursuing to go play volleyball at. And so I decided to take the journalism route instead, and ended up at Arizona State.
Oh, that's great. And were you located in the state of Arizona? Because I know you mentioned your family's in California.
Yeah, so I grew up in California and then moved out to Arizona when I went to Arizona State. So I was there for 4 years.
Okay. Yeah. And you went to Cronkite. Gosh, I heard about you all the time, especially when you were the in-game host for
Yeah.
basketball. Really, did you do any of the other sports other than basketball, or?
Yeah, I did. I started off with baseball. That was my first one, and I was the backup. So it was a funny story. I actually auditioned to be the women's basketball backup in-game host my sophomore year, and I did not get it. I wasn't even considered a backup. So I was like, okay, I tried. I'll just move on to do some other things. And then I kind of, somebody recommended me like the next year, my junior year, to be the backup baseball in-game host. And I was like, okay, I'll give it another shot. What do I have to lose? And so I did an in-person interview with there, and I did a demo, and it went well. And I ended up being the backup. And I did as many games as I could. And so then they brought me on to do women's basketball, and I was like, okay, well, I think I can do men's basketball too. And they're like, we agree. So then they let me do men's basketball. So at one time I was doing baseball and men's and women's basketball, and it was awesome. I loved every second of it. It was pretty sweet.
Yeah, and I believe you were the in-game host the year ASU basketball went undefeated in that non-conference season, and then they kind of just blew it all away when they Pac-12 season. But during that season, that was probably one of the best ASU basketball seasons, at least that I've seen the entire time I've been at ASU. So, I mean, what was it like, speaking out to especially those full house crowds?
It was unreal because it was something that Arizona State hadn't seen in a really long time. And it was awesome just to be a part of it because you saw from the first game up until like the last game of the regular season ending. And like you just see how much more people were there and the energy just constantly building every single game. It was amazing. And it was funny too because like, yes, I work for the team and I'm at every single home game. But at one point I remember, and they were like 10-0, and I was like, oh my gosh, we're 10-0. And then the next thing I know, they're the number 3 team in the country. And I'm like, I'm a part of this. This is the most insane thing. Never in 1,000 years would I think, like in my first season, being the men's basketball in-game host, like they would all of a sudden be the last undefeated team in the country. And so, and it was cool because I'm like, the better they do, the better of an experience it is for me. I get to put that on the resume, and being in front of a crowd of like 14,000 plus people, like they moved certain walls so more fans could fit in the stadium.
Oh, yeah,
and I was like, wow, that's unreal. And I get to almost be the face of it and be a part of it, and it was the coolest thing. I loved it.
That was the fake wall where it had all the portraits of the athletes just to reduce capacity, and they took that out. They haven't put it back ever since because the attendance.
Yeah, I had no idea that was a thing either. And they were like, yeah, we removed the walls. I'm like, what walls are you talking about?
Yeah, usually they only remove it for like games like the Territorial Cup, but since ASU basketball is so big, they wanted to expand capacity.
Like, cool.
Did you want to ask?
Oh, yeah, that's cool, man. Just by you being like a now young like sports journalism man, and like just being very so young in your career, I just wanted to ask you like, what's your future plans in like the sports journalism world? Like, what do you plan on doing? Like, I'd say like in the next like few years. Like, what's like the main goal for you?
I mean, the main goal for me right now is to move up as far as I can, as fast as I can, and I wish I knew where that was. I think anybody who's pursuing this line of work, you will never, ever completely predict where you're going to end up. Like I ended up in Grand Junction, Colorado, and now Little Rock, Arkansas, 2 places that I never thought I would ever live in. But right now, as I move up the ladder in a sense, it's cool because, you get more years of experience. That means your options become a little more narrow, and you get to move to bigger and better cities where there are more sports teams and people really care about it. And so I'm not saying that they don't here in Little Rock. Like fans are crazy here about their Arkansas Razorbacks. But so in a few years, I hope to be in a top 25 market covering, really major sports, making a name for myself. And then hopefully after that move just to like regional networks and, just riding the sports wave as far as I can go. And then, maybe pick up some more hosting gigs and then branch out. Honestly, I don't see myself doing sports forever. I want to see where God takes me and, do whatever he wants me to do. And so, I'm really excited. So I'm just working as hard as I can right now in sports, and hopefully I ride the wave into some even cooler and better things.
So like, oh my bad, Caleb. But it's like this. So like for like future, so like you say you want to do like hosting. So like for like a future like broadcasting like network, like what would be like your dream broadcasting network to do host at, like ESPN for example, or like what would like a place that you would want to do it, like your dream one?
Yeah, it's funny that you asked that. It's my ultimate dream is to be a late night talk show host.
Oh my God.
So
that's sick.
Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel,
yeah.
Kind of,
late night with Troy Lynch. That's sick.
The Tonight Show with Troy Lynch,
Yeah.
So I love late night television. I think it's amazing, and I love I love having fun on TV, even more than I love covering sports. So I hope that's where I end up. But honestly, I'm having a lot of fun wherever I am. And, you're talking about sports on television. You can never really be too upset about that, except right now when there are no sports to talk about. So, but yeah, so that's the ultimate goal, is being a late night talk show host.
Definitely have the voice for it. I can hear it.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I can.
Oh.
At least that's awesome.
You mentioned, it's all in God's plan, and kind of talk about that more in your Christianity beliefs. Did that, play a role in how you decided to get into journalism, or any challenges that you faced during those years at ASU?
Yeah, it's honestly the reason I am in journalism. When I was in high school, I told you I was playing volleyball at the time, and I was in Southern California. And then for the longest time, that's what I thought I wanted to do. And, and the whole dream was to play Division I volleyball in Southern California. Well, I got presented that opportunity, and I was like, wow, this is what I've been working towards for the last 4 years. But then God's like, no, I want you to pursue a degree where you've never even done it before. You don't know if you're going to like it. You don't know if you're going to be good at it. And I want you to move to another state. And I'm like, really? But this is what I've been working towards. So I trusted him, and I was like, you know what, God, I don't know why you want me to do this, but I'm going to trust you and we're going to do it. And so that is the only reason why I went to Arizona State. And so, God was such a big part of my life throughout college. To be honest with you, I got wrapped up in just work my first 2 years. I've been a Christian my entire life, but I felt distant from God my freshman and sophomore year, and that was on me, obviously. He was always there, but my main focus was being successful in, what I was doing. And I was so career focused that it made me almost lose sight of the main point. And so then my junior year, once I actually got that baseball in-game host gig, that's when things started turning around. And that's when I was like, okay, God, I don't want to do this for me anymore. I want to do it for your glory. And then everything took off. I thought I was, making improvements my freshman, sophomore year, but it was after that moment where I was that's when I made my biggest stride. And that's when I saw the most growth in what I was doing. And it was so much more rewarding for me. And just giving all the glory to God was just something that I needed to do. And it took me a couple years to figure it out. And, I could go on and on with so many different stories of what I've been through in college. And he has been so faithful and so good to me that it's honestly what's carried me through. And one of my mentors now, he's a sports director up in Indianapolis. He's a big Christian guy too. And he keeps telling me, he's like, you need it in this kind of business because it is tough to survive if you don't have faith and if you don't have God on your side. So very lucky. And yeah, honestly, I'm here where I am today, and all because of him.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I agree with that 100%. The journalism business is very challenging, and there's a lot of obstacles in the way every day. And you elaborate on that story, you wanted to be a volleyball player, and then you got into journalism because it was all in God's plan. And I've always heard that saying, if you want to tell God a joke, tell him your plans.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of an example of that. So, but going into outside of your in-game hosting duties, you were also an anchor with House of Sparky. And tell us more of what you did outside of in-game hosting during your time at ASU.
Yeah, so I was with the Walter Cronkite Sports Network for my first 2.5 years of college. And I was doing that, and it was great. And I was getting some amazing experience. It was a great place to start out at. And then it came to a point where I was like, okay, I don't think I'm being treated like I should. So basically what I did was I joined House of Sparky, and I was like, hey, I have this idea. I want to do this, football show where I anchor it. And I had Blaine McCormick as my co-anchor. And then, so we covered Arizona State football. This was my senior year, and we had a blast doing it. We did player interviews. We covered every single game. And then we put together a weekly show, and it actually went on to win an award. I was part of the Cronkite Sports Bureau, so covered a lot of oh my gosh, I'm blanking on it. What's it called?
Spring
Major
training?
League Baseball. Yeah, spring training. Gosh, I'm blanking on it. So a lot of spring training there, and then I also interned with Channel 12, and that was for 2.5 years. I did 2 seasons of Friday Night Fever with them, and then I was their full-time sports intern my senior year. And so I got to cover the Coyotes, the Cardinals, the Diamondbacks, the Suns, literally everything for them. And I really got to see what a newsroom was like. And so I honestly did as much as I possibly could in college. And I got the best experience from it. So I was busy, always trying to fill up my schedule to the brim. And then, and so it all paid off. So it's good.
I was trying to fill up your schedule. Did you always try to, fit time to, read into the Word of God? Or has that always been a challenge during those 4 years?
It was always a challenge, and I hate to say it. And I think the first 2 years I was very bad at it, and then my junior year I started making a conscious effort. And I was going to church, but it was never like the first thing on my mind. So, and I think it was my junior and senior year where I really started diving into the Bible and diving into my faith a little bit more, and it helped me grow a lot. I was a part of this church called Hope Church, which you guys are obviously very familiar of.
Yes.
And it helped me so much because it wasn't just, me reading the Bible by myself. It was me and a bunch of other people who were very Christ-like, and they were helping me understand the Bible even better. And that's what helped my career. It helped my personal life. It helped my faith and everything. And those were some of the experiences in college that I'll remember the most, and they helped shape me to what I am today. And it continues to shape me. It helped me develop better habits. But it's always been a struggle for me to read. When I was in college, I always thought reading was a chore. And reading the Bible was unfortunately no different. But I definitely was better at it my junior and senior year, and it helps a lot. That's for sure.
Yeah, that sounds great, obviously.
Yeah, keep doing it.
Was there ever a time, because I've always, heard this popular saying as well, like you're going to hear 100 no's before you hear your first yes. Was there any time in your college career where you were kind of heavily criticized and you kind of used that as motivation?
I don't know if I was ever heavily criticized. I mean, failure is always going to be a part of, especially this industry, where you're always going to be trying out, you're always competing with other people to get certain jobs, especially in sports, because, everybody would love to just talk about sports. And so everybody thinks that they can do it, which automatically makes it more competitive. For me, like there were times where, I tried out to be an anchor for Cronkite Sports Live, and I got it my second semester sophomore year. So I was young, and you have to try it every single semester. And I was like, cool, I already got it. I did a good job, and I should be able to get it and, do it for the rest of my college career. And then they didn't choose me the next semester, even though I had experience and they knew I was good at it. And so I was like, well, that doesn't seem fair. And then there's politics that I won't get into, but I deserved the position and I didn't get it. And so I was just like, well, this is super unfortunate. And then it hurts the self-esteem, obviously. Then it's like, wow, am I not as good as I thought? Am I, in the right field of work? That kind of thing. So that was probably one of the biggest times where I kind of criticized myself, where I was like, is this where I should be? And then the other time is when you're applying for jobs. And that's a thought where I think you can ask anybody who's in this industry. When you're applying for jobs, you almost lose sight of how good you are, because you'll be sending out emails, and sometimes you never hear responses back, and you're like, maybe I'm just not as good as I think I am, or maybe all this work was for nothing. so I don't know if you say like you get 100 no's, like you certainly will get turned down no matter what. Like even if you're amazing, sometimes certain stations are looking for somebody different than you, or they're looking for a woman instead of a man, and that kind of thing. So everything gets a little more fragile and political in that sense. But those were probably the only 2 times where I like kind of almost doubted myself. But that's when I went to House of Sparky, created my own football show, and we won an award. And then next thing I know, after I got a few no's from applying for jobs, I got a yes from Grand Junction. And that's all you need is that one yes, and then you take off with it.
When you did House of Sparky, was that the first studio show for House when you did it with Blaine, or was it already established?
No, I'm pretty sure that was the first one. There wasn't a ASU football show that we did in the studio before Blaine and I did it. And I remember because Josiah Destin was the managing director at the time, and I told him about it. He was like, yeah, let's do it. I don't think we've ever done this before. So I was like, cool, you don't need to worry about that. Let me do that. And it all just worked out. So I basically had to kind of come up with the idea and create it myself. And honestly, that was some of the best experience that I got before going off to my real job. And so if you get a no, sometimes you almost have to force a yes.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, because like if you can't, I've always been told like if you can't find the opportunities, you can't enforce the change, then be the change and create the.
Yeah.
So.
Especially in today's day and age where it's like we have so many different resources to do stuff, it's becoming harder and harder to make excuses for yourself. It's like, yeah, this person basically turned me down, so I didn't get this job. Well, it's like in our industry, you could still get experience even if you don't technically have the job. So, and that's what I knew. So once I didn't get the sports anchor position my entire junior year, I was like, all right, I'm done with this. I'm going to do it myself. And it turned out to be even better than, Cronkite Sports Live. And because we won awards and they didn't. So that's just how it worked out.
And we're not knocking on CSO. We love the guys at WCS.
No, they're great. And it was just back when I was there, we didn't agree on certain things. And I have no bad blood against them because, they gave me my first opportunities and I'll always be grateful for that. But sometimes you outgrow places and you need to leave. And so that was just kind of God telling me, hey, time to do your own thing. And I was like, all right, this is more work, but it turned out to be even better than I thought.
Yeah, it seems like he had better plans for you and really taught you a lot on kind of all the positions on running a show and not just anchoring it.
Yeah.
But moving in to your most memorable moments, especially after college, and I'll get into the viral video you had with the kids.
He came in the middle of the game, and Anderson Beto, he actually survived a scare. And oh my gosh, these fans are going crazy. I don't even know what's going on right now. Anderson Beto, he only faced 2 batters, all right? He retired them both, but the first batter, all right, guys, all right, we need to calm down, all right? I have a job to do. I'm just trying to do my job, guys. I don't even know who these kids are. Where are your parents? Where are your parents? Your parents need to do better.
You were doing, I believe, a stand-up report, and there was a bunch of kids trying to do whatever it took to prevent you from doing the report. But the way you handled it was so amazing. I think that's why it went so viral, is that, a lot of journalists would be like F-bombing at the kids or anything like to show that they're super mad, and it gets caught on live TV. But you had a completely different approach to that. And so how'd that all happen? Did they know ahead of time, like you were about to go live, or was it taped?
A couple of them did know. I befriended, I'm a very friendly person and I love kids. I dealt with kids, I would volunteer with the youth ministry at my church. And then I also worked at a laser tag place for a little over a year. So I dealt with middle schoolers, elementary schoolers all the time. And, in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm a child at heart. So I just get them and they get me. So so it's funny. So they see a guy with a camera and a microphone, and then all of a sudden they just kind of like they just hover over to you. And so it started off with just 2 kids. And so we were just talking, and I was, telling them, yeah, I'm getting ready to go live on TV. And then the more they got comfortable with me, the more like they would joke around with like, what if I did this on camera? And I'd be like, well, then I get fired. But then they just thought it was funny. They didn't think I was serious. And so, and then it was just them. And then I started, and as soon as I start talking on TV, that's when like 30 different kids surround me and the camera. And I'm like, this could get ugly, but I think they'll be okay. And so, and it wasn't. But I think my experience with handling kids through the laser tag job that I had, and me just like being a kid person in general, I think that helped. But honestly, all of the live experience that I've had, like from my job in Colorado and being at Arizona State, that also helped. So, because that situation, the worst thing you could do is curse at kids, because then you'll go viral for the wrong reason. So I was just like, Jesus, take the wheel. And luckily everything went all right.
Yeah, especially because I know during the times you were the in-game host, there's segments where you were trying to teach a kid how to dunk a basketball in this little tight style basketball hoop. And
Right here, we got Max and we got Jackson, and they're going to show you their best dunk, and then you guys are going to have to help me pick a winner because it's going to be tough. That's going to be hard to beat, my friend. That was excellent.
oh yeah, you seem really well with kids. So yeah, Troy loves kids. Everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I go to therapy every week because of them, but it's all right.
Did you even hear yourself like when they were all yelling and trying to get in front of the camera when you were doing that?
Yeah, I did hear myself. I was actually thinking to myself a lot. So the whole background of it was I would go live for 4 minutes, and then the whole time I'm like, okay, there are going to be a lot of kids here, but you got to be professional. And this is going to be a big test to see if you can get through this without getting distracted or not. And I was like psyching myself up for it. I'm like, okay, you can do this. Like, this is going to be a monumental moment in your journalism career because they're going to be distracting kids, but you're still going to tell the people about this baseball game and not let anything get the best of you. And then halfway done, I think it was like 2 minutes into my live shot, I run out of things to say. And because I was thinking to myself too much, and all of a sudden I was just like, wow, I blew through everything too fast, and these kids are actually starting to get to me because they're starting to do things that I never thought they would actually do.
I got an idea.
I just try to get a job. Nobody told me this would happen. Baseball doesn't matter anymore just because I'm getting mauled by kids. I don't even know who these are. Where are your parents? All right, that's mine. Help me. Oh my gosh, help me. This is my job.
They joke about it, but most of the time when you're on TV and there's kids around, they just stop and stare at you. But these kids were unlike any kids I've ever seen. And they're like jumping in front, pulling on tables, like getting this close. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. And so I was just like, you know what? I've lost all control. So I might as well just give into it rather than try to force people to like hear me talk about baseball, which was obviously not the focus anymore. So once I gave in, that's when it all went viral.
Yeah. And I think the best part was when you gave a shout out to your mom. Like, I need help.
What?
I'm a turtle.
Help me! Mom, wherever you are, I need your help. Oh my gosh, I was not expecting this. This was a mistake.
Yeah, so that was awesome. Franklin,
I needed her.
do you have any more questions before I get more? Because I feel like I've asked a lot. Yeah.
I probably just one question, I guess, would be just I kind of asked like last week to Ari Wolf, but like one of the questions I like asking people that are like full and like in the career or long in the career, I just want to ask like what's like some advice that you would give to us that are still in college that they want to like continue to progress in this business. Like what would be like one advice that you'd give to like people like us that are trying to make it in the sports journalism business?
Yeah, I think college is an insanely important time for everybody's journalism career. And if you're at a place like Cronkite, you need to take advantage of every opportunity. I know a lot of people go to college and they love the social aspect of it, which I got plenty of, and it was amazing. But for me, I went 100% on my work the entire time. And I think everybody, if they want to try to get into this business, needs to realize that college is an extremely important time because it sets you up so well for the real world, especially being at Arizona State and the Cronkite School and everything that they have. So my advice for you guys in your position right now, you have to use every single opportunity you can, and you have to go as hard as you can, and use all the resources you can to try to make that step into your first job as easy as possible, because you don't want to get to your graduation and being like, I don't have a job and it doesn't look like I'm going to get a broadcasting job. And I just wasted basically 4 years. You don't want to be that type of person. So from your freshman year to your senior year, you need to jump on every opportunity, make sure you're grinding. And that's what's going to help you, because I look back all the time at all the different experiences and teachers that I've had at Cronkite. And I think, man, I was so lucky to have all those. And it set me up so nice because there were so many different things that I could do that when I got to my first job, people were like, wow, like you already know what you're doing and you're already good at this. And now I'm 23 in a top 60 market. And, by the time I'm 25, I hope to be in the top 25 market. And that's all because college set me up for that. But it's just the people that are going to take advantage of college, that's when you're going to know what people are going to be successful in the long run. So take advantage of college. That's my advice.
For sure.
It only lasts 4 years, so it's kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I know there's a lot of students want to hit the fast-forward button and, go on the job market, but do you think, how to say this, are there some days that you wish you were still back at ASU?
Yeah, I mean, I miss Arizona State. I mean, college was so much fun, and it was great. I worked a lot, but I also had amazing friends, and, I had a social life too, I feel like all I'm telling you guys is just work, and that doesn't mean like kill yourself. You still want to enjoy what you're doing and take breaks when it's absolutely necessary. But I do miss it. I mean, when I was able to be the in-game host and cover these professional sports and do literally everything, it was awesome. And, it's funny too, because when I went to my job in Grand Junction, I was like, man, my studio back at ASU was way better than this. And it was it's true. And it was funny because it was a small market, but, it was the actual real TV. So sure, yeah, there are certain aspects that I definitely miss in college, but I never go back. I like where I am right now, and I'm always looking forward to the future. So.
Yeah, and moving into the future, so with the whole coronavirus going on, so what's been going on? Has there been any major changes on you going out to report, or how do you guys handling the whole pandemic?
Yeah, so it's been a little over a month since all sports and basically everything has been canceled, but we're still covering sports. I have a sports department of 3 people, including myself. So I have my sports director, there's me as the number 2 guy, and we have our digital guy. So we're still putting out sportscasts every single day, just getting really creative with it. So what's changed is the fact that, I haven't been able to cover any games. since I've been here, which has been a real bummer. But at the same time, it's forced me to get really creative. So a lot of my interviews are done via FaceTime or Zoom. And then, let's see. And then I also report basically from home now. So I don't go in during the week. I will go out and I'll shoot my story, or I'll stay in and I'll shoot my story. And then during the weekends, that's when I'll anchor. So that's the most normal part of my job, is when I go into anchor. But yeah, so that it's very interesting, like all the different stories, and I don't really get to see my coworkers all too often. So, but I feel like a whole bunch of other people are going through that too. But it is very interesting.
Without a doubt, I think this is probably, and I hope this is probably the most interesting time in sports with everything on pause, and we hope this doesn't happen again. But have you kind of used this as like well, I mean, you're still working, but is this downsize the workload? Have you kind of taken this as sort of an advantage?
It's an advantage if you look at it that way. So, I mean, I have a whole lot of friends who are sports reporters, and they've had to switch over to news. And I'm like, well, I never want to do that. I want to be able to come out of this situation saying that, yeah, there were no sports, but we were still covering sports. And, it's hard. So, taking advantage of the situation, because, yeah, I mean, people are going to remember this moment so vividly for the rest of the time, unless it keeps on happening. But hopefully this never happens again, and we can look back and it's like, man, wow, like I survived it. Not only that, I was able to produce sports content every single day and get creative with it. And it was still good TV.
Okay. And then on predictions, how soon do you think any kind of sporting events could return, even if it means not having any spectators?
I know. That's an impossible question to answer, because nobody really knows. My first impression, though, is that all of baseball is going to get canceled. I think it just happened at a really bad time, and I don't see any major solutions really working out, no matter how drastic they are. I'm hoping that we still have football. That's all I care about, and I think we will. I don't think that there will be fans, but I think that there still will be football, and that's what I'm hoping. But at the same time, I don't know.
I think that's a little surprising. I think baseball will be the first sport to return, because at the Big Four, they were kind of the most less contact.
Right.
And they're also considering playing in Arizona, which I know that would be amazing. I think especially
Yeah, right.
it'd be a great time to work for the Phoenix Sports Bureau at Cronkite if the MLB was playing their regular season here.
Gosh, I envy you guys there. That's for sure. That would be pretty incredible. Honestly, I hope you're right. I hope baseball does come back, at least something. But, that's just how I'm feeling right now, just seeing all the other people report on stuff. It's been a while since we've had good news. So.
But yeah, kind of moving into the last question to wrap things up. Out of all your years in broadcasting, what was your favorite moment so far? And this could be in ASU or the time you're at Grand Junction or in Arkansas. What was your favorite broadcast moments?
Favorite broadcast moment. I honestly don't know if there's a favorite moment for me. I think so far, like, the journey and the grind has been my favorite part. I think when I was in Colorado, and it was during the fall/winter, I would go from working Monday through Friday at my station, because I was a sports director there, and we'd cover anything and everything, a lot of football, a lot of other fall sports that are going on. And then I would drive all the way to Colorado Springs, which is a 5-hour drive, and sometimes it's a little bit longer because
5 hours.
Just to, so I could host Air Force football games. So I would work Monday through Friday, and then I would drive 5 hours super early Saturday morning. I would host an Air Force football game on Saturday. I would somehow stay the night with a friend or get a really cheap motel. And then I would cover the Denver Broncos on Sunday, drive back Sunday night, get back to work on Monday. I think looking back, those are some of my favorite moments. And then here's probably more that will answer your question. Covering the X Games was probably some of the most fun times that I've had reporting on sports, because you're talking to the Olympians and the best snowboarders and skiers in the world, and they're all like just super happy to talk to you and super cool. And it was unlike any other sporting event I've ever covered. So covering that was one of the best for sure. And then getting all my kids.
That's crazy. 5 hours. That's like basically driving from Phoenix to LA. That's crazy. How are you able to, keep up with the edge on, trying to get enough sleep or try to prevent being exhausted when you're on the air or just getting ready to be on the air?
It's a certain thing that clicks right before you get on the air. And, with me, it's like, when am I ever going to have this kind of opportunity again? I would hope more so in the future, but it's what I've been saying, like taking advantage of the opportunity. So, when I was offered the job, it's funny too, because it was my former boss at Arizona State who had the same position, but he moved over to the Air Force Academy. And then he found out I was in Colorado. So he's like, hey, do you want to host our football game? And I was like, yeah. He's like, okay, it's a 5-hour drive for you. Hope that's cool. I'm like, I'll make it work. I don't really care. So, it was hard. There were certain times where I'm driving and I'm like, man, I am so sick of driving, because you just see the road all the time. But, there's like 6 home games and then covering the Broncos the next day. It's all so exciting that you just have the adrenaline pumping and it's only going to help you. So that was never really a problem. And that, a lot of God played into that there, because you can't really just do that on your own. That's something that you need the higher power to help you out with, for sure.
Gosh, that's crazy. Still, I don't think I'd be able to handle 5 hours. But, you mentioned the guy that runs Air Force football, he reached out to you. So I guess that's another example of, connections are key in the journalism world. It's a small world, so.
It really is. Hard work creates connections, especially if people know that you're a hard worker and a good worker. And then it follows you after college. Just because you're leaving a place doesn't mean you're leaving your connections. So, and I've reached out to a whole bunch of different people, just trying to get critiques on my reel. That was back when I was in Grand Junction. And then we would start up conversations and I would talk to them over the phone. And so now I feel like I know people all over the country. And I feel like I have people who can recommend me for a job or tell me about jobs. I can help them too. So everything's always connected. And I think people need to know that. So everything that you do has a purpose. And once you realize that, it'll help you out in the long run. You might not see immediate results, but you'll be able to tell eventually.
Well, just awesome talk with you, and I hope you're staying safe in Arkansas, especially I think because I don't know if it hit your area, but where the storms and the tornado that hit the state, which were you in near the area when it hit, or?
No, that was Jonesboro, which was 2 hours away, and yeah, that was pretty crazy. I'm praying real hard for everybody there, but it's crazy because it's 2 hours away, which is that's pretty far away, but at the same time, it's not that far. So I'm in like tornado country now, and I'm like, what? I've never had to deal with tornadoes before, so it's intense at certain points, and the weather can be deadly even. So, but luckily that wasn't exactly where I was, but still pretty bad.
I mean, tornadoes are terrible, don't get me wrong, but I mean, after going to California a few times, I'd rather deal with tornadoes than earthquakes, because earthquakes you can't even see coming. And that,
no, that's true.
I mean, for sure. So, But yeah, Troy, thanks so much for coming on. Hope you're staying safe. You can watch all of them. What's the station that you're on for anyone that wants to watch where you are right now?
I'm Fox 16 over here in Little Rock, Arkansas. Obviously, if you're not living in Little Rock, you can't really see it on TV. But yeah, if you go to fox16.com or follow any of my social media accounts, I always post my work up over there.
Awesome. Well, yeah, definitely check that out. Thanks so much, Troy, for coming on. And yeah, stay safe as always, especially in this kind of time.
Yeah, thanks, guys. You guys stay safe too, and keep up the good work. God bless.
Okay, well, our thanks once again to Troy Lynch for coming on the show. Hope he's doing well and staying safe in Arkansas. But now we're going to get into some recent news. This past, I believe Sunday it was, ESPN aired the last 2 episodes of the hit documentary, The Last Dance. This is a little bit outside the box territory, but I think it would be shocking if we didn't mention this. And as I said early in the show, I was only 1 episode in, and one of the biggest reasons for that, and I'll explain this now, is because of the 93 results in the NBA Finals when the Phoenix Suns lost to the Bulls. And not only that, I'm just a busy person. But Franklin and Wills have seen all the episodes, and we're going to get all into the nitty-gritty. So just going to throw this spoiler warning here that we're going to get into some serious spoilers here. So if you haven't seen any of the episodes, probably want to hit the pause and watch all the episodes on ESPN+. But let's get right into it. So, Wills, since you probably have a lot you want to let out right now, I'll let you just take the floor on this right now.
So I want to preface this by saying my entire family is from Chicago. Everyone is born in Chicago. My dad played college basketball about 45 minutes north of the city in Chicago while Jordan was playing for the Bulls. So my family is very big Chicago Bulls fan. My dad loves Michael Jordan. So I was born, and, I was taught to love Michael Jordan, how he was one of the best ever. On the other hand, with The Last Dance, I thought it was a fantastic documentary. I thought it was fantastic. The thing is, as journalism students, we know, when we write let's say we're writing a story on Patrick Mahomes. We write this story. We don't go back to Patrick Mahomes and say, hey, Patrick, what do you think about this? Is this story good enough to publish? Because you don't let the person you're writing the story on tell the narrative. In this case, Michael Jordan owned every single piece of footage in that documentary. He got to tell exactly the narrative he wanted to tell about himself. I want to ask both of you guys this. How do you think Scottie Pippen looked in that documentary?
Oh.
Scottie Pippen looked like a piece of garbage in this documentary for 10 episodes. He's one of the 50 greatest players of all time to ever play in the NBA. And Michael Jordan made someone – I'm not going to say that Michael Jordan isn't one of the greatest. I'm not absolutely saying that. But, LeBron, anyone needs help to win a championship. Without Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan does not win 6 championships. Michael Jordan absolutely controlled the narrative. And I loved the documentary. I loved it showing his leadership, some of his – you really got to get into the mind of one of the greats. But I felt I was watching a 10-hour commercial that was written about Michael Jordan. I felt like it was a lot of advertisement for the Air Jordan brand. It failed to mention a lot of his shortcomings. One of the things that bothered me the most as a Suns fan was, as Caleb mentioned, the 93 finals, Charles Barkley won the MVP that year. Michael Jordan in that documentary was like, oh yeah, Charles won the MVP, but I'm going to go and take this ring. The thing that irritated me about that, Charles Barkley had a fantastic NBA Finals. He put up about, 29 points per game, 15 rebounds, and about 8 assists. Yeah. Does that sound like an MVP to you? Yeah, it does to me.
I think it was 30. I think it was like around 31 or something like that. But yeah,
what I'm trying to prove is that people acted like Michael Jordan was just the best player on the court every single night. And yeah, he may have put up 40 points and, 5 assists and 6 rebounds. But, someone that's putting up 30, 15, and 8, I'll take that over Michael Jordan. But, the Suns didn't have Scottie Pippen. They didn't have Dennis Rodman. Without John Paxson, that game goes to a Game 7 at Phoenix. There's just a lot of things that I feel like the documentary really failed to mention about Jordan's opposition. For example, Gary Payton. If you look up the stats where they talked about the glove and how Jordan wasn't afraid of the glove, when Gary Payton got switched on to Michael Jordan in Game 4 of that series, Michael Jordan shot 40% from the field and averaged 14 points less per game. That when Gary Payton was the premier defender on it. The documentary completely failed to mention that. Another thing the documentary failed to mention was the illegal defense rule, which back then, which happened to be changed the year Michael Jordan retired. Illegal defense was you were not allowed to soft double team, which means you're not allowed to leave your man. If he's on the other side of the block, you can't go to the other block to kind of play help defense. If you're going to leave your man, you have to play a hard double team, which was failed to mention in the documentary. Michael Jordan is one of the greatest isolation players of all time. Same with Kevin Durant, Kobe Bryant, Carmelo Anthony. I think if you put any of those 4 players in the exact same position Michael was with those illegal defense rules, I think Carmelo has 1, 2, maybe 3 rings. I think Kevin Durant has more than 6. I think Kobe Bryant has more than 6. And I think there's a lot of players that are mentioned that are the best of all time. I think the illegal defense rule that was changed in 2002, look it up. It was changed the year before LeBron James came to the league and the year Michael Jordan retired. There's a lot of things in this documentary that were great, but a lot of things that weren't mentioned. And I have a huge issue with that because the entire narrative was controlled by Michael Jordan. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk, and there you go.
Wow, I mean, tell us how you really feel. I mean, right? But no, I absolutely agree. Michael Jordan was one of those personalities, and I think that was kind of the start of the whole player personality era for the NBA, and that's why I've been kind of more into hockey since, because I just want to watch the game. I don't care about what they do in their downtime. And that's what everyone's going crazy about. Like ESPN literally will like make a breaking news story about Zion Williamson's shoes. Like it's so different. So Jordan kind of invented the whole personality era for not only NBA, but for all of sports. And I think the 1990s Bulls definitely define the whole definition of the term bandwagon fans. Those years, they won 6 championships. And not only that, they showed in the first episode that no one, like in the 1980s, especially that 1980 Chicago Bulls team, no one gave a crap about the team. Everyone would rather go to lacrosse games. Lacrosse games sold out more than Bulls home games. So
absolutely, yeah.
No, it wasn't until not only they made the playoffs, it wasn't until they actually started winning the championships when they started to get the interest of the fans. So I thought it was it was hard. I actually did watch part of episode 2 and they mentioned Scottie Pippen, but if that's the best they did, that's kind of unacceptable. But I mean, they still did a great job in the documentary. I did enjoy it for once, whether if I agreed with it or not. But
so before Franklin starts, I'm not going to get on a huge rant again. I want to say I personally really enjoyed the documentary. I respect everything Michael Jordan did as a player and what he did to push his teammates to get better. It was more the narrative that was told and how the timeline of things went on that just really bothered me about the documentary. It was well done, well told, but I just think, 10 hours, they did the best they could. That documentary could have been told in a 30-hour documentary. There's so much more to be told in that entire story. And I really don't want to downplay how great the documentary was, because it's I watched all 10 episodes the second they came out on every Sunday. And I loved them. But, as a journalist, I think it's our job to critique, how things are made. And that's why my rant, I don't want to sound like a Jordan hater, because I respect Jordan as everything he's done and what he's done for the game of basketball. But yeah, that's my defense of my rant.
Well, I mean, I also agree to your point that, it wasn't Michael Jordan that won those championships. It was also players like Dennis Rodman, Horace Grant, Scottie Pippen. Like it's a team effort. It's not just one player. And I think that's what the NBA has kind of gotten to now. Like when the Cavaliers won those championships, everyone like thinks, oh yeah, it was the Cleveland LeBron James team. Like
when Cleveland came back from 3-1, people, I mean, obviously LeBron James had that huge block on Andre Iguodala, but people forget Kyrie Irving hit that game-winning 3. People do forget that. The game-winning 3 over Steph Curry was hit by Kyrie Irving. And, That's what I was thinking.
I gotta say though, I did. There was a funny moment in episode 2. I barely made it through episode 2.
Is it about Dennis Rodman?
No. What was it?
Oh.
Was it the draft when Michael Jordan got drafted and Portland had a chance to get him and they picked? Was it Sam Bowie? That was
Okay. Sam Bowie though
I
in
think that
college.
is like the most freezing cold take I've ever seen in sports. It's definitely top 3 up for me.
So no, Caleb. Let me talk about this. 2 things about that draft. A, how great of a player is Akeem Olajuwon to be drafted ahead of Michael Jordan, but still people are like, okay, that's not that bad of a draft pick. I see why they drafted him. That proves how great of a player he was. But 2, Sam Bowie, he was actually a great player. His career was derailed by injuries, just like Derrick Rose was. So, I mean, I'm not saying that you should draft Sam Bowie 10 out of 10 over Jordan. That's not what I'm saying. Obviously, in any redraft, Jordan would be drafted number 1. But Sam Bowie, at one point in his career, like for the first, I want to say 3 years of his career, there was no question that Sam Bowie should have been drafted over Michael Jordan.
No, I actually disagree. The history books are still going to go down that Sam Bowie was a draft bust and probably one of the biggest draft busts of all time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just because of the 2 people he was drafted in between. That's why.
Well, not to mention the position Michael Jordan played. They already had that position filled with Clyde Drexler with them already. So that it makes sense why they didn't go that route. But yeah, no, it's like the only reason why they say he's a bust is 1, he got derailed with injuries, and 2, Michael Jordan was behind him. So that's pretty much it. But yes, I'll be quick with my analysis on
go
the
ahead.
documentary.
I feel like I just cut you off again, but yeah, go. I feel like we cut
it's all good. It's all
so
good.
many times.
I absolutely loved the documentary. I wanted to go. I mean, if I had to add like one little narrative part with the documentary, I would say that there's people that are saying that the timing of the documentary was kind of fishy because apparently the decision was made as soon as the Cavs made that 3-1 comeback, and they said Michael felt threatened from LeBron taking his throne or something like that. So there's that whole spill on everything, and it's like whatever 50-50 you want to believe at that one, because he's as competitive as ever, as people say. No, but like I just loved his whole mentality, everything that he like stood for. I'd say like he came across as a little bit of a jerk, but I wouldn't necessarily say he was a jerk. It's just more of like he wanted to win at all costs, regardless if he was labeled or felt as if he needed to be a jerk. And I actually have respect for that, not to a degree, but like to a whole thing. But I also agree with the Scottie Pippen thing about how he kind of looks terrible in this documentary. It looked like he quit not once, but like so many times during this run. And I felt so bad for him, man. It was terrible. I mean, like, first with I get with the money issue with Jerry Krause, but that's personal, and Jerry Reinsdorf, and that's personal. Also, I feel like another nugget that was actually should be taken with a grain of salt was apparently Jordan and everybody wanted to come back for a 7th ring, and Jerry Reinsdorf had wanted Phil Jackson to come back for another crack at it, but they were going based off a rebuild kind of choice and decision. And that came across as kind of like, with a lot of people say Jerry Reinsdorf was kind of being cheap in that regard. But in my opinion, I feel as though if Michael doesn't retire the first time and they go for another one after 6, in my opinion, they do win 9 straight. But you never know. 'Cause there are situations, though, where I feel like, in my opinion, if Supersonics head coach put Gary Payton on Michael Jordan at the start of game 1, I really feel I don't know if they win, but I don't know. Like they're like
I think you're referencing George Karl.
George Carlisle, yes, correct.
George Carlisle, yes. If that, I could not believe when I saw that, and they said, and they're down 3-0, I think 3-0, And then they said Gary Payton told George Karl, no, I don't care what you have to say. I'm guarding Michael. And apparently when he guarded Michael in the regular season, they won that game. They won that game. And I was like, so like, I'm not saying that the Bulls lose that finals, but I say it's very, very interesting to say the least. And also there's series with the Pacers that was enticing and interesting. So like, I don't know, man, but like overall the documentary was a huge success and a hit.
Absolutely.
Dennis Rodman's hilarious. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, just watch episodes 2 and 3, and watch the last episode. You'll see Dennis Rodman. Like, oh man, it's amazing.
I heard there was a funny moment.
Good content all around.
Craig Sager paid like his fine or something like that. Some kind of joke. He gave him money.
Yeah, he gave him MJ money. Yep.
That's funny. All right. Well, we gotta wrap things up. That was an awesome discussion. One last thing, and all you have to do is just answer in numbers on a scale 1 to 10. How good was this documentary? And Franklin, you go first.
I'd say 10 out of 10. Like in terms of like content wise, yeah, 10 out of 10 for sure. Like I never seen a documentary like that ever. So yeah.
Wills?
I would say if you include everything, then including my rant, I would say 8.5. I really, really enjoyed the documentary. I know I just went on a rant and I downplayed it, but the documentary was great. One of my favorite things is we got to see the Dream Team footage of that scrimmage in I think it was Monte Carlo, where we got to see that footage that's never been seen before, which is talked about one of the greatest basketball games to ever be played was the Dream Team scrimmage where every single player was the 12 best players in the NBA at the time, minus Isaiah Thomas.
Excluding Isaiah Thomas, yeah.
Minus Isaiah Thomas plus a young Christian Laettner from Duke. Those are the 13 players on that team, and it's supposed to be one of the greatest basketball games ever played. And we only got to see a little tiny bit of the footage, but we got to see a little bit of that footage that's never been seen before. So there's a lot of things that took you inside of his mind and stuff that were incredible. But that's why I give it 8.5 because you have to include the narrative too. So I give it an 8.5 out of 10. Very enjoyable film to watch.
Yeah, and also not to mention, I don't know if I want to spoil this because you only seen one episode, Caleb, right? Or do you?
Go ahead.
Okay, the flu game. That wasn't necessarily a flu game. That was
he was sick.
He ate too much pizza.
Interesting. All right, well, I'm sure we'll have more to talk about this on Twitter or future episodes. But that's going to do it. So much fun. And hello to your neighbor outside, Wills, in the background. All right, well, that's going to do it. Our thanks once again to Troy Lynch for coming on. It was awesome to have him. And, thanks for watching. We got to do more debate now because I think we got a lot of unfinished business in this debate. That's going to do it for Wills Rice and Franklin Miller. I'm Caleb Bouchy saying goodbye for now. And as always, stay safe. See you then.